I am healthier, stronger, more energetic, and happier than I ever have been.
Welcome to your Journey to Joy podcast. I'm your host, Moyra Gorski, and I'm on a mission to help you find joy in the chaos of life. As a retired nurse, multi-passionate entrepreneur, and mom of 4 adult children, I know what it's like to feel the overwhelm of it all and wonder if and when the joy will show up again. And I've learned it's up to us to go find that joy. On this show, you will hear inspiring stories from those who have overcome all kinds of life challenges, tips on how to stay healthy and vibrant during the ups and downs of life, and simple ways on finding joy in your own life. Let's face it, life is messy, yet when we travel together on this journey, support and encourage each other along the way, that joy starts to show up again. I'm so excited to lead you on this journey of you to find the joyful life that you deserve. Well, welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Moyra Gorski, and I am thrilled today. I am always thrilled when I have a guest that comes on my show, and today is no exception and a little extra special for me. Although we're all, as we talked before, we're all people in this journey of life. But Samantha Harris is kind of a big deal, has been a big deal as a TV host. If you've recognized the name with Dancing with the Stars, with Entertainment Tonight, we have come together. We've met each other through a breast cancer journey and a company that we've both aligned with to help people live healthier lives. And so Samantha has said yes to coming on my podcast today and sharing her story and just sharing lots of things that she has learned on this breast cancer journey. So thank you so much for joining me today, Samantha. Thrilled to have you here.
Moyra, thank you. And I think that your audience is so lucky for everything that you share with them on an ongoing basis. So I'm glad to be a part of it today.
Thank you. Thank you. As I do with most of my guests, I have them start out with their story. And again, as I mentioned, we joined together on this journey, joined a sorority that I don't know about you, but I never thought I would be a part of with breast cancer. So I'd love for you to share again, how did this start with you? How did you find out? And just those first few days or that first part of the journey, because I remember mine and I think I always will. So I'd love to hear your story there.
Yes, well, I'm thankfully 10 years out, and I still remember every moment of those early days of the journey. It's obviously a life-changing thing that we don't forget. The upside, though, is that the minutia, the details I didn't think I would forget, or those moments of opening my eyes in the morning and having that good night's sleep, and then remembering that realization of, oh gosh, though, I have cancer. That thankfully is in the rear view, and I'm going to keep it that way. And I have made incredible lifestyle changes and habit changes to enhance my life, elevate my wellness. And now as a 10-year cancer thriver, surviving beyond what I ever thought I could and plan on a lot more decades yet to come, I am healthier, stronger, more energetic, and happier than I ever have been. And so that's what I'm really excited to share, as well as the insights as a journalist and the research that I did that can help impart really great, helpful tools for everyone listening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Amen to that. Those are wonderful words. And that's what I hope that people hear, is that if they're in this situation, that there is hope, and it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be this huge fight and this huge, again, every cancer is different and everybody's journey is different and their choices are different, but there is such hope out there. And I believe it starts with with taking a deep breath and getting educated and finding your team and getting different opinions and just learning a little bit about perhaps how this cancer came about, thinking about that.
And I think that's the biggest thing. So I'll share a little bit of my story, and then I'll go into the really helpful tools that will help people to take action starting today with small, manageable steps that are not overwhelming in a diagnosis of any sort, we are overwhelmed. And so it really is about making small, manageable changes. So let's jump back to 2014. Here I was, on top of my TV hosting game, from hosting Dancing with the Stars for 8 seasons and Entertainment Tonight for many years and a stint on Broadway in the musical Chicago. And I was always saying yes to everything. I was, every season I was hosting Dancing with the Stars, we shot 40 episodes a year live. I also always had a full-time entertainment news job. And then I also said yes to being a freelance correspondent for Good Morning America. I said yes to that offer to star as Roxy Hart in Chicago, which was a dream come true. And it was amazing. And I moved to New York for the summer and I worked 7 days a week and I shot my TV show from the center of Times Square in the daytime. And I'd either go to rehearsals or eventually my show, 8 shows a week. Oh, and I had a 21-month-old. So it was an insane time. But it was magical because I was fulfilling this Minnesota girl who just wanted to be on Broadway, wanted to be on TV, being able to do all of these things. And then I kind of came up for air in 2014. And I thought, my dad died of colon cancer when he was 50. His mom was a breast cancer survivor who lived to 95. She was diagnosed postmenopausal, 62, and lived to 95. Amazing. But I was 40. My daughter's now, my 21-month-old was now 6. I now had a second daughter who was 3. And I thought, I should set a baseline and get one of those mammogram things that everybody talks about. So I did. And the results came back clear, which is exactly what I anticipated because at 40, I was, or so I thought, as fit and healthy as I had ever been. Mm-hmm. And 11 days after receiving clear mammogram results, I was changing after a workout. And you know how just constricting those sports bras are, and you take it off and you kind of got to move the girls around a little bit, Mm-hmm. And as I was touching my breast, I realized, wait a second, I have never felt that lump before. What is that? Didn't stick my head in the sand because I had a clear mammogram. I thought, I'll be a good patient advocate for myself. I don't know what possessed me to do that, but I did. Went to my longtime OBGYN, quick clinical exam, felt around, said, oh, it's nothing. 40, lumpy breast. Welcome to 40. Sent me on my way. A month later, lump still there. Thought, I should get a second opinion. But again, not cancer. So I should just see my internist. Same quick clinical exam, felt around, told me it was nothing, and sent me on my way. Now, the holidays came, and you know how crazy that time is. Finally, it was February. I came up for air after the holidays. The pesky lump was still there. And I thought, if I'm going to live with this, quote, nothing lump for the rest of my life, I should probably see a doctor who looks at breasts every day as a specialty. Well, little did I know the only doctors who do that are breast oncologists who are looking for breast cancer or treating it. So there I was in a breast cancer facility, again, reassured after 2 ultrasounds and a needle biopsy and even a subsequent MRI. You're not crazy. There is some sort of lumpy something there, but you know what? Good news is it's not cancer. Bad news is, says the oncologist, I don't know what it is, so I'm going to suggest we take it out. So I figured, you know what? My boobs did what they had to. They got me my husband. They fed my kids. If I'm going to have a disfigured breast now because of this lumpectomy, not what I really want, but so be it. Let's make sure it's not cancer. Woke up from that lumpectomy, still reassured, no cancer. A week later, went for my final pathology results by myself because I told my husband, no cancer, you go golf. It's a gorgeous day. Then get home to the kids, take care of them, and I'll see you when I see you. And Moyra, that's when I sat all by myself in this doctor's office with this oncologist, just feverishly sketching circles and dots, which was my breast and this invasive breast cancer, to her shock. And it was in that moment in March of 2014 that my cancer journey began. My walls came crumbling down. I had to go home to my 3 and 6-year-old with a smile on my face as if nothing was wrong and mommy's everywhere. Let's go play. And I met my husband actually at a nearby park first because I couldn't go straight home. And I just remember him getting out of his car and us both walking around our cars to meet. And I just completely crumbled in his arms to the ground. I never understood, you see in the movies when people cry and their knees give out and they go down to the ground. I never understood that until that moment when my knees gave out. And thank goodness his big, strong arms were there to catch me. And he never missed another appointment after that or listened to me. If I told him he didn't need to come, he was there. And that was quite a big journey turn for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and just those, thank you for sharing that. None of that, nobody's journey, is easy, but just that, at least I know the way that we have these expectations, or we have these, again, you were reassured so many times that even if there was a small voice in your head saying, well, there's a lump, maybe it could be cancer, you pushed that away because you had gotten these other several reassurances. And, I had had a couple of biopsies. Until I was laying there looking at the gal taking the ultrasound, and regardless if I have a nursing background or not, because I don't know if it makes me that, I never read ultrasounds, but I was laying there and I was looking at the screen while she was, imaging at it and stopping and then measuring. I'm like, so that's it, huh? That's the lump. And I knew intuitively when she said, I'm going to go get the radiologist or whoever she went to get. I knew intuitively that it was positive. I just felt that. But I was like, as I sat there and thought back, well, yeah, I had a biopsy, I think in 2016. It was nothing. I had one 2 years prior in October, October, 2 years prior to that. And I was like, why didn't I, it's like those, why didn't I pay attention to that? Why didn't I make some changes then or whatever? And we can't go back and say, well, but, I just remember intuitively sitting there and then went out and sat outside on this little brick place, outside of the hospital, just crying, going, what just happened? Because in an instant, right? We say life can change in an instant. And that's what happened to you. That's what happened to me, just crazy. And yeah, we sit at a point where things just change.
It's amazing how in that instant our life does change so drastically. And yet coming out of these ashes and out of the darkness of a diagnosis, what I found was I didn't realize I needed to find, which was so empowering, was that we are and can be in even better control than we may realize of our health outcomes, of our future health goals, of what we want to achieve, and can we achieve them? And if we have diabetes or heart disease or cancer or neurodegenerative diseases in our family, do we just accept that that is what our future is? No, the quick answer is no. And so when I was diagnosed, I thought, well, of course, it must be hereditary because my dad had colon cancer. There's a colon breast connection. Obviously, his mom had breast cancer. So it must be genetic. I got those genetic tests back and there was not a link. And I remember, and I'm grateful, very grateful now, because that means, of course, for my future and also for my kids, it's a better thing. However, in that moment, there was a flicker of disappointment because I just wanted an answer. Right. I just wanted, I had nothing to do with this. I couldn't control it. This is what happened to me. It was hereditary, like the BRCA gene, where, you have that 80% chance of getting cancer, whether it's ovarian, cervical, or breast. And yet, when there's no genetic link, breast cancer is actually only 5 to 10% hereditary. Mm-hmm. So that was honestly the most baffling statistic that I learned, that when we think about that, we have 90 or 85 to 95% of a chance to really make changes in our life to not get a breast cancer. Or actually now we know there are many other cancers that also we have such better control over, colon cancer and prostate, and it keeps going. So To me, that actually was learning that statistic that only 5 to 10% of breast cancers were hereditary was a turning point for me, because I realized there's something I might be able to do about it, but I don't know what to do. So I put my journalist hat on, because that is my background. And I began to research, and I dug deep. I dove into research and science and spoke to multiple high-level experts. And what I learned, Moyra, is I learned that it is what we are putting in, on, and around our bodies that affect our overall well-being, that turn on or leave off certain genetic structures within us. So even though it's kind of confusing, I felt like, to get my head around this. So, okay, by the epigenetics of it, the lifestyle and habit changes that we can make, we can either leave off or turn on these genetic structures. And yet only 5 to 10% are hereditary. How can it be hereditary, but then there's a genetic switch? That's what's crazy. When it's hereditary, the genetic switch is just automatically forced on.
Right.
When it's only that 5 to 10%, then the epigenetics, how we're choosing to live our lives, then controls the switches. It's sort of like the gun is loaded. Are you choosing to fire it by how you're eating, how you're moving, how you're dealing with stress or not? Are you being mindful? Do you have toxic relationships? Are you putting products on your body, from your skincare to your makeup to your hair care to your cleaning supplies around you, that are then flipping those switches on and firing that gun? That was empowering. That was exciting.
Yeah,
and
that's epigenetics. If people don't know what that is, you did a great job of, again, we have genetics that, like you said, it's just, if you have this, it means this. But epigenetics is, okay, but you can control, are they going to turn on or not turn on by what you're choosing to do every day. And I've been in my business for 25 years, and that's what I always tell people, is that I work to educate people on, again, what they put in, on, and around themselves. And then, because I didn't know these things 25 years ago about toxic cleaners and, foods and things like that. And then you make a choice. I'm all about choice. Like, you make the choice. And that's I found the same thing. It's so empowering because I thought I was doing all the right things. And then I got a gut punch, and I was like, oh, well, maybe not. But then again, hearing more and more, and I dug in and listened to podcasts and read books and picked up things from the library. And that's what was so empowering to me. Well, okay, maybe, yes, this happened, but I still have choice. And so maybe it's time to make some different choices, or be a little bit more consistent with those choices, which you thought you were making, but you weren't so consistent with, and what are those things that I should be doing, those choices that I can make that can really impact that turning on or turning off. And I really want to spend the bulk of the time on talking about skincare, makeup, the things that we put on our skin, in our hair, all over, because that's what you discovered. And you had been in the spotlight. And when you're in the spotlight on TV, on Broadway, they put a lot of that stuff on. And
I spent my career in the makeup chair being shellacked with these chemical bombs of endocrine disruptors that mess with our hormones, from allergens to carcinogens to neurotoxins, because especially when we live in the US and Canada, we're not regulated like the European Union is, or even Japan. Their regulations are much more stringent on what ingredients can be put into the products. And that goes obviously with our food industry as well, right? We have things that are generally regarded as safe, GRAS. They haven't, the tests haven't been done, or they haven't been done on humans. And so just because they're generally regarded as safe does not mean that they are safe for us. It might mean that they're not going to kill you instantaneously like a poison if you were to take cyanide.
Right,
so I would also like to not have a slow death. I also would like, as I think many of your listeners probably would agree, to not only live a long life, but an able-bodied, sound of mind with as few years of morbidity at the end of life as possible. You have people who are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes or heart disease, neurodegenerative diseases, or of course cancers, who are living in and out of hospitals or on medication, or are feeble, or aren't able to do the things, right? You don't want to be a life observer. You want to be a life participant. Mm-hmm. And so, look, there are things that are still going to happen because we're living longer. I blew out a disc because I've just been active, and guess what? I'm dealing with back pain. But you know what? That's structural. That's different, right?
Yeah.
So what can we do to mitigate these toxins in, on, and around our body? And so after doing all of this research and studying, I actually went back to school. I became a certified health coach. It was a year-long program. I've done many programs since then. I wrote a best-selling book called Your Healthiest Healthy because I thought I was healthy. And then after cancer, I realized I needed to be my healthiest healthy.
Yes.
So the book, Your Healthiest Healthy, debuted as the #1 bestseller on Amazon. And I was so happy to just get information out there because there isn't one way, to do it. And what you said too, you want people to have choices. And that's also what my goal was, to give people the insight and the groundwork, that foundation to live their healthiest healthy life. But we have to decide what's right for us. And I personally like to operate ideally a 90-10 rule, but an 80-20 on certain days, right? So we have to figure out, okay, so we know these are the things we should be doing. Where are those times, do I want to have a glass of wine with friends? Do I want to indulge in, an ice cream sundae bar with the kids? Do I want to use that one, toxic product because I just can't find one that is, footing the bill? And that's what we need to figure out, what works for us. But educating ourselves to know where our choices are and how to do this. So a couple of things.
And if I could just interject something, I love that you said that, and I want people to hear that because I've kind of said the same thing. I'm not I've gone plant-centered, more plant-based, and I did quit drinking, and I've kind of lost all my desire for it. So it isn't, even though I was and so I'm grateful for that. I was a big, I loved having a glass of wine with a friend and things like that, but I just don't, that desire is really gone. So it's not, there isn't the temptation. And occasionally I'll have something more whatever, bubbly and stuff like that, because I like bubbles, and that isn't as sweet and things like that. But what I tell people when they're like, oh, really? You gave up all meat? You gave up all cheese? And I'm like, listen, what I did was that I'm plant-centered. And so I feel like there's so much okay, I don't want to be wrapped in fear in my life and in my choices. And so I've gotten educated. I bought some cookbooks and I've started, and I get a meal. Purple Carrot delivers a couple of meals every week. So I have some different things to try, but I'm plant-centered. And so I've eased towards that, but I've given myself that oh, well, my daughter made some cookies the other day, so I had a couple of cookies. So it's that not being so afraid to live, but being aware that, yes, it's better for me and for those that want to prevent reoccurrence to be plant-centered and limit their alcohol and to be at a better BMI. It's better there, but not living in that fear, oh my gosh, I just had something and it's coming back. That's living in fear. I think we're both on the same place. We want to live. I choose to live. So I choose to make choices so that I feel good and that, that I'm living, as opposed to being I'm so afraid that what I'm doing is not, that's just not, there's too much fear wrapped around in this cancer world. And it can be scary when you hear the C word, but we are in this camp, there's a lot of hope, and it is based on our education, our choices.
There is a lot of hope. And that also, what ends up happening is when we are stressing too much over making the wrong choices, right? You can go the other direction. We have this chronic stress in our body. And a lot of people, probably 80-90% of people, and that's not a science-based statistic, but it probably is close to it, are dealing with chronic stress. And when we have chronic stress, we have high levels of the stress hormone cortisol. And here's why that's bad, right? We need cortisol. It's a life-saving hormone, right? It's the thing that allows us to swerve out of traffic if someone's coming through a red light at us. But when we have chronic stress and those high levels of cortisol continually flooding our body, it leads to chronic inflammation. We know scientifically that inflammation, we're not talking about you twist your ankle and you get a swelling. We're talking about the silent inflammation that we're not seeing. And we can, by the way, there are blood tests. You can ask your doctors for the C-reactive protein test and a bunch of others to figure out what your chronic levels of stress are in your body. But chronic stress Chronic inflammation then leads to a variety of chronic diseases. We know that they are correlated. And so we need to mitigate that stress. So, to your point, if we are focused so much on towing the perfect line, whatever that perfect is, that's creating too much stress. Now, you don't want to go too far the other way too. We go, who cares? I don't want to be stressed out, so I'm going to drink 5 days a week. I'm going to go have a binger with my friends at girls' night out. That actually is a disservice to us. We know that alcohol specifically, and just to jump on the alcohol train for a moment, we know that alcohol specifically, and there's been new meta-analysis that come out, which meta-analysis is when they take multiple studies, they put them all together, and they find the correlations, that through line. That regular alcohol consumption, even a couple of days a week, a couple of glasses a week, leads to 7 different cancers: colon, breast, and I believe prostate among them. So does that mean don't ever have a drink? No, this is about choice. Take the information, figure out what's right for you. Leaning into the wait, but I heard that having that wine, that red glass every night is heart healthy. And the thing is that's also, they have a lot of polyphenols in that. And that and resveratrol, which we hear sort of that buzzword that has some great, there are fantastic supplements, and you guys can talk to Moyra about amazing one that I know she and I both take that has 13 times the resveratrol that isn't going to give us the harm that alcohol does. Acetyl alcohol, which is what gets you drunk, gets you buzzed, is a known carcinogen, and acetyl alcohol is in all alcohols. So back to the Mediterranean diet, the people who are having that glass of red wine every night, well, guess what? They're also eating a plant-based or plant-forward diet. They're having a little bit of fish for great brain health and extra healthy omega-3s. They're not really eating meat. A lot of them are moving, especially in the blue zones, right? So we're talking about Sardinia and areas of Europe, and there are a bunch of other areas of the world that are blue zones where they're living to 100 able-bodied. They are also moving their body every day. They're not just hitting the gym really hard, stressing their body, that they're moving their body on a daily basis. They're walking to see their friends. They're walking to work. They're getting up and down. They're not sedentary, going from their car to their desk, to their car, to their Netflix binge. That sedentary lifestyles are deadly.
Brought to you by Gorski Wellness and the possibility of a better you. Are you feeling sluggish? Ready for a change? Need more energy? Up for a bigger challenge? I'm Moyra Gorski, retired nurse and wellness advocate. For over 22 years, I've been helping people live healthier lives while making small changes each and every day. Those small changes lead my clients to living a healthier lifestyle with markedly better health. As a brand ambassador for the Shaklee Corporation, the most clinically proven wellness company in the world, I guide my clients to make healthier choices each day with their food, supplements, skincare, workouts, and mindset. They say getting started is half the battle. Let's make healthy happen together. If you're ready for simple, natural, sustainable solutions to feeling and looking your best, let's connect. You'll find a link in the show notes, or reach out to me at moyragorski.com. Here's to a better you. Yeah, and it's if you watch the Blue Zones, I mean, it's the community too. That's what stuck out to me, that they live in community. They cook in community, they eat in community, they walk. And so that community part, and being, again, I think the pandemic showed us all that we need to be together with each other. The fact that we can hug each other and be and support each other, that community piece is, again, not being isolated and sitting playing your video games and watching all your Netflix by yourself. Although
I worry about our kids very much, because they're so much on their phones and in their Snapchats and their TikToks and spending too much time streaming. But that's a conversation for another time. So the movement, the community, the reducing your alcohol intake, and really moving to a plant-centered diet. That was also for me, Moyra, after my cancer, for being someone who grew up in Minnesota eating every part of the cow and lamb chops and chicken or fish or yogurt. I ate animal protein breakfast, lunch, dinner 7 days a week. So the biggest nutritional change I made was, and it was a slow process, that I started to just reduce my animal protein intake. And I now
very rarely, I don't eat red meat. I very rarely eat poultry. I have fish a couple times a week, but I have to watch my mercury because I know that we have, unfortunately, very toxic waters with our mercury and our PCBs, which are just chemicals in our water that really harm us. So I get my mercury tested quarterly from my doctor and try to keep an eye on that. I do detoxing from exercise and sweating to being in an infrared sauna and taking charcoal binders and things like that, which has really greatly helped reduce my high levels of mercury. It's exciting to see that in blood work that you can actually see those biomarkers and those different things like mercury change. So when people say, Samantha, well, how do I even start? Like I'm like you were. I eat meat all the time, or I eat dairy all the time, or I eat chicken whatever it is. Start with just trying to fill your plate at least half full of veggies at every meal. That is the number one pillar of living your healthiest healthy life. And it's something I talk about as well on my Your Healthiest Healthy podcast that I just launched. I have one of the first 10 episodes is making plant-based eating easy. And and actually I interview Dan Buettner, who created the Blue Zones, who came up with the Blue Zones. Dan Buettner is one of the first interviews that I did in the Your Healthiest Healthy podcast. I interview the glucose goddess, Jessie Chanspe, who is all about your glucose and your blood sugar levels. And so what you learn is when you fill your plate at least half full of veggies at every meal, and start with those veggies, non-starchy. So we're not talking about potato and corn and French fries. That does not count.
Right.
We're talking about as much robust, vibrant color as you can get on your plate as possible, and filling your plate at least half full of veggies at every meal. And if you're still choosing to eat animal protein, then reducing that size, because we have grown up in a society where meat is front and center. It's the star of the show. It's that 4, 6, 8, 10 ounce steak or piece of chicken or piece of fish. That's really too much. Our bodies don't need that much. No one dies of protein deficiency. As we get age, we have sarcopenia, we lose muscle mass, so we do need to really focus on getting enough protein, but it doesn't need to be the star of the show. So that plant-based eating, that shift to it. And then the other goal is we know now, again, meta-analysis, for a strong microbiome. So 70% of our immune system is in our gut. So we need a really strong microbiome. And gut health is essential for that. That means a strong amount of fiber intake. The USDA recommends 12 grams per day. Most people, 20 to 25 grams per day, but most people only get 12 to 14 grams of fiber per day. So when we flip the script, we fill our plate half full of veggies at every meal, then we're getting, which we need, closer to 30 to 35 grams for women, 35 to 40 grams of fiber per day for men. That's going to feed our microbiome, our good bacteria in our gut. The variety of colors we know from this meta-analysis, we need to aim per week, not per day, but per week for 30 different plant-based varieties of food. Don't worry, it doesn't mean just eating lettuce. It means 30 different varieties and colors of fruits, veggies, nuts, seeds, legumes, beans, whole grains, so quinoa, teff, amaranth, farro, and even your herbs and spices count. So I think it's like a teaspoon or a half a teaspoon of a spice or an herb actually counts as one of those 30. So just keep, minimize the salt, but throw on all the other goodies, and you're going to get to 30 before you know it. You're going to have enough fiber. Your body's going to be happy. Your gut's going to be happy. Your immune system's going to be reinforced. And that is a huge change in your health and well-being and energy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it can seem, again, overwhelming. Like when people say, well, and it's, I'm not really throwing him under the bus, but my daughter's boyfriend, I mean, he wasn't a veggie eater. And like now, like, and we, have lots of veggies in our house, even before this, but, so he's overeating and like, do you eat broccoli? I've never really had broccoli, or I eat broccoli with ranch. I mean, he's coming along. I just kind of chuckled on the inside. This last Sunday, he was over and I think, threw some things on the grill. And of course, I do a huge pan of roasted cauliflower and broccoli and Brussels sprouts and lots of different things. And he has his little piece, little portion there. I mean, it's better than nothing, right? So he's just started. I mean, love makes you do some silly things sometimes, but it's been cute. Like Anna's kind of taught him how to cook and bake. And, they make some fun treats and things like that, but they're cooking and they're not going out and she's helping him, find his way around the kitchen. I think that's good. I tend to meet people and women that they're like, well, I don't really cook. I'm like, what do you mean you don't cook? But not everybody. I mean, I grew up with a stool in the kitchen next to my mother who, up in the stool, and we had the little aprons and we learned how to bake and cook. And, her styles were a little different than mine. But the point is she taught me to feel comfortable, in the kitchen. And that's where, I was listening to a podcast this morning, one of my favorite guys, Chris Wark with Chris Beats Cancer, and Dr. Jen Simmons. And he talked about, health doesn't happen in the hospital, right? Health happens in our homes, around the dinner table, and, again, outside in the park and being outside and in community and things.
Yeah, Dr. Jen Simmons is fantastic. She's a friend of mine, and she's also a guest on the Your Healthiest Healthy podcast, on my podcast. And, the insights, she's a functional oncologist, and that's a very rare thing to find. And it's very helpful because, we go to our doctors for answers, but doctors get about not even a week, but maybe a few hours of nutrition training. And the functional doctors are the first to say, what was happening in med school? How do we not know that food is truly, as Hippocrates said, like it is medicine. And so, for those who are listening who heard you saying you grew up on a stool next to your mom in the kitchen, don't worry. You also don't have to become this amazing chef to be eating a plant-based diet. It's really more about assembling food and food prep. So I'll tell you what I love to do. I go shopping. I love to then get the salad spinner out. I get some romaine hearts. I chop them first. I throw them in the salad spinner. I wash it. I get a big tub. I line it with paper towel, and I basically do like a salad layer, paper towel layer, and to absorb the excess moisture. I do the same thing with my veggies, everything except for my avocados and tomatoes, which I do the day of, right before I eat them. So the carrots, onions, celery, bell peppers, whatever you like in your salads, even chopping broccoli, especially if you don't like to eat broccoli whole, if you chop it really finely and you just scatter it in, it's fantastic. The sulforaphane that comes from chewing the broccoli is so powerful for us. Broccoli sprouts have 50 to 100 times the sulforaphane benefits. So broccoli sprouts are great for topping on salads, avocado toast. I throw them in my smoothie. So, but prepping and having that front and center in the fridge ready to go. Then I throw in lentils and garbanzo beans for some great protein and getting more fiber and getting another check on that 30 veggies per week, or, plant-based foods rather per week guidelines. And it's really helpful to have that food prep because then I can have it for lunch. I can have it for dinner. It's great. I can have it as a side dish, but I like to make it my main because that, again, is the goal here. Then I'm a big fan of smoothies. Smoothies and soups, by the way, are kind of like your hot main meal type of version of smoothie. Here's why I like to start my day with a smoothie. I can fit into it about 17 of those 30 in just one smoothie. And then I have that smoothie multiple times a week, and now I'm getting even more. And I change up with what's going in sometimes in terms of maybe the greens and the type of greens so that I can, again, get more boxes checked for those 30 different plant-based foods. But I love my smoothie because I will throw into it a lot of the ingredients that I know are really beneficial to my health nutritiously and nutrient density-wise, but they aren't necessarily things I might want to eat on their own. I'm not going to just put a mouthful of a handful of broccoli sprouts into my mouth. I love matcha green tea powder I throw in. As much as I love the idea of the old Japanese habit to hold that nice warm cup of matcha green tea. For those who don't know, there's green tea and there's matcha. Green tea takes the leaves, puts them in a little bag, tea bag, you steep it, and you drink the remnants that's left in the water. Matcha is a green tea leaf that's basically made into a powder, a fine powder that you then put into water directly. And when you consume it, or again, in this case, my smoothie, I just take a scoop, I throw it in my smoothie, you're actually consuming the entire leaf. And there's these things called catechins, ECGCs, that are really powerful antioxidants, polyphenols. They're good for you in so many ways. They're also great cancer fighters. And some other cancer fighters that I put in for both prostate and breast is flax. I grind it. I buy the whole seeds rather than buying the ground because they tend to become more rancid and lose their potency if you buy the pre-ground. I just have one of those little, cheap off of Amazon coffee bean grinders, right? Those, and you just throw the whole flaxseed in there. Zhook, zhook, zhook. I do maybe 2-3 days worth. I store it in my fridge, and I actually store the flax seeds once I open them. I store them in a mason jar. I transfer them from the plastic bag they come from into a glass mason jar, and I store them in my freezer. So freezer or fridge, either one is fine. But you want to, once you open that bag, I do the same with my chia seeds. I know flaxseed we definitely need to. Chia, some people keep them on their shelf in the pantry. I prefer to just pop them into so chia seeds are another thing that I put in there. I put in a very high quality plant-based protein powder that Moyra and I both work with, a company that we both love and trust and is fantastic and has a lot of other great benefits in that protein powder that I use. And I'm sure you do too, Moyra. And then I have my greens and my berries, and I change up what's in there. Sometimes I'll even put frozen organic cauliflower from Costco into there for extra flavor. But really also aiming for organic. And here's why. 2 reasons. Number 1, we want to reduce our intake of the herbicides, the pesticides, the weed whackers, the Monsanto glyphosate that's on these, because those harm our health to no end. They really disrupt our hormones. And we're not just talking about the sex hormones, because cortisol, the stress hormone, is a hormone.
Right.
Our insulin, which is for glucose regulation, is a hormone. And of course, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, our serotonin, all these other wonderful things are, right, the happy hormone. So we want to make sure we're minimizing that. So really choosing to purchase organic as often as possible. And I know we have kind of, okay, well, gosh, I go to the store and I look at the organic raspberries versus the non-organic, and they're so much more expensive. And then they die 2 days later. Buy organic frozen. Throw them into the smoothie. The Dirty Dozen, which is the Environmental Working Group's kind of wonderful thing that they put out every year, EWG.org. It's a wonderful nonprofit. Environmental Working Group puts out the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. So what that is basically a list of the produce every year that has the most pesticide-heavy produce to the least. And so if you're looking, okay, well, I want to spend my money only on what I really absolutely have to buy as organic. Okay, I get it. Again, as Moyra said, it's all about your choices. Ideally, aiming to buy as much organic as possible. When you're choosing, go for the Dirty Dozen, those 12 most pesticide heavy. They change from year to year, but pretty much every year you're going to find strawberries. You're going to find any sort of lettuce, greens, tomatoes. That also goes for your tomato sauce, your ketchup, your pasta sauces. That's where you also want to go for organic, because they're using those pesticide heavy conventionally raised tomatoes if it's not an organic sauce. Okay. So that's sort of the big nutrition thing. The other really important pillar of your healthiest healthy life is getting the toxins out of what's on your body. And that means your skincare, your makeup, your cleaning supplies around your body as well. For men, it's your shaving cream, right? It's your mousses and your hair gels. So again, sat in a makeup chair, shellacked with these chemical bombs of endocrine disruptors and carcinogens and neurotoxins. So small manageable steps. When it comes to food, small manageable step. Just start to fill your plate half full of veggies at every meal. Not telling you to stop your meat and your cheese. Eventually, maybe you want to back off on those. Start to reduce your alcohol intake. When it comes to your personal care products, your skin is your biggest organ. So maybe you just change up your face lotion and your body lotion. You change up your foundation if you use it, or your BB cream or your sunscreens, and getting whatever you're putting all over. And then, okay, I'm not saying throw out your entire beauty bag right now. We spend a lot of money on that stuff.
That's right.
I get it. So just start to weed it out. When one thing is empty, vow to not buy that toxic thing again. So when I did, my most recent television show was a game show. It was a wordplay show on Game Show Network called Tug of Words. We shot 65 episodes in 6 days. It was intense.
You had a lot of costume
I'm sorry,
changes.
not 6 days. Sorry. And that was a total lie. 65 episodes in 3 weeks, 6 episodes a day. There we go.
Okay.
We're
You
going.
had a lot of, we watched several of those. So you had a lot of clothes change there.
A lot of outfit changes, a lot of, making sure I had makeup and hair that would stay bulletproof for 12 hours of shooting. So we basically taxed ourselves, my team, my makeup and hair girls who've been with me forever. I said, okay, girls, we are only bringing in makeup, skincare, and hair products that meet my very, very high standards for being free of toxins. And they were awesome. They were so excited because they started to make over their own beauty bags for their other clients too, because they realized, well, wait a second, why do we want to continue to, they'll have clients who will demand the Chanel or the, Dior or some other high brand that's fully toxic, but they started to make over their beauty bags so they could also provide clean beauty for others that they were doing. So we vetted so many different brands. We bought a handful of them. We had companies send us a handful of them to try. And I put together my clean beauty PDF. So I put together a clean beauty guide with the products that I know, trust, and love that really worked. And by the way, anyone who's listening, it's a free guide. You can just send me a DM on Instagram or Facebook, Samantha Harris TV, like television, Samantha Harris TV. Send me just a DM that says clean beauty, or tell me you listen to this on Moyra's podcast. Because I always love
it. And I'll find it and I can put it in the show notes too.
Amazing.
If there's a PDF.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. And send it to me and I will send it to you. And you pop in your email and it pops back and gives you this PDF to download, because I just feel it's really important for people to be able to have quick guide access. I wish that had existed when I was looking for things after my cancer. And that's why I wrote the Your Healthiest Healthy book, because there was no sort of one-stop shop to give me that foundation of what I could take bits as I wanted and then, and then go forth and come back when I was ready for more. And that's also why I ended up doing the Your Healthiest Healthy podcast, because first of all, I'm interviewing amazing people like Dan Buettner and the Glucose Goddess and Jen Simmons. And, even I get to interview this amazing for meditation, right? Talking about the other pillar, bringing stress relief into our lives, and meditation, but breath work even more for me has been even more potent than just sitting there meditating. And Guru Dev, Ravi Shankar, who is a global spiritual leader. He's from India. He literally is a peace envoy who's negotiated peace for warring countries. So I interview him. I think he's episode 4.
Awesome.
Talking just kind of about how to make meditation easier and more accessible. It's not a matter of having to sit down for 30 minutes cross-legged in silence without a thought passing through your mind. How to start is with small, manageable steps. Small, manageable steps with adding more plants and veggies into your meals every day. Small, manageable steps by just changing out your foundation or your lotion. Small, manageable steps by starting with a 2-minute breath work or 30 seconds of just stopping when you turn off the ignition and you're in silence in the car with the windows up. It's a very peaceful moment after the stress of getting to where your location is. So instead of hopping right out of the car, can you just pause for 30 seconds? Take some deep diaphragmatic breaths. That means you fill the belly like a balloon without your chest rising, and then slowly control it. I find it's actually easier to learn diaphragmatic breathing lying down, because you can feel your low back being pressed into the floor as your belly extends, and you can keep a hand on the belly to feel that rise while you keep a hand on your chest to feel that not move at all. And really, those are the big differences with how to mitigate your stress, so that when you are in a stressed scenario, you can take those deep breaths. No one knows that you're having that breath moment, but you're bringing your cortisol levels down by activating your parasympathetic nervous system. That's your rest and digest, and deactivating the stress response, the fight or flight with that sympathetic nervous system.
Yeah, so good. I mean, I have been introduced to breath work, hour-long breathwork meditations, 20 minutes, on the Mastery app of like that hypno breathwork. It is truly life-changing. That's a conversation for another day, because we're running up against some limits here. But please, since you are a friend of Dr. Jen Simmons, because I would love to have her on my podcast. But the point is not, I mean, if she wants to come on, great. But I want you to please tell her when you speak with her next that I'm going to get emotional. But I listened to her podcast, her first interview with Chris Wark. On one of those days that I was driving back, I picked up my imaging because I was sending him to some place that I thought I might do some cryo, whatever, instead of surgery. I heard her podcast and I started to cry in the car because I thought, see, there is hope, because she said I was the healthy one that got cancer. And she said on that podcast, take a breath, go find your team. It's going to be okay. And I have followed her and listened to her since. And at a time that was just tough for me, I heard a voice that gave me that hope. So please tell her the impact that she had on my life, because that was the interview that I was listening. I follow her. I give her so much credit for what she did. I mean, she was a well-renowned breast surgeon who was doing all these things and saving the world, if you will, until she got her own diagnosis. And then it woke her up to be like, wait a minute, I don't want to do, at least this is the story that I tell people. She didn't want to do what she was recommending to her clients. And so she started studying just like you. She went to IIN, she studied Mark Hyman, she became a functional medicine practitioner, and she is doing some incredible things. And I really respect her. So please give her that message, because she has really had an impact on, again, just the fact that I feel like there's hope, again, that I could make those changes and I didn't have to get sucked into this world of fear and like, I don't know what to do, and just that conventional treatment of, and I felt empowered when I said to my medical oncologist, thank you for sharing that all with me. And I'm going to wait and I'm going to work on this, because everything I've learned has taught me that I believe if I work on this, I won't be back to see you ever again. And she respected that and said, well, go to the radiation oncologist. I said, I'm not going to go there. Again, that was my choice. And anyway, so there's so much goodness in this episode, and I know that your time is limited, so I want to respect that. But thank you so much for sharing this. Again, I hope people heard that there is hope. There are those small things that we can do each day. I love the meal prep. I love the smoothies. I love just getting home from the grocery store and putting it all on the counter and just putting in little glass containers and mason jars and getting a label maker. I did that a few months ago as we prepared to sell our house and get a little bit more organized. I pulled out the label maker and filled my mason jars. And it makes it so it's quick and easy that we don't have to what are we going to eat? It's all right there. Just pull it out, throw it in a salad bowl, throw some balsamic vinegar on it. Or I made this really cool balsamic vinaigrette, olive oil, blueberries, and a little Dijon mustard and salt and pepper, blended it up. Oh my gosh, it's so good. I can't wait to have a salad today.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
There's good stuff. I can share that with you.
And I think, by the way, I absolutely will share that with Dr. Jen. And I also went to IIN for my health coaching, and it's a great program. And she's a great asset for anyone who's listening. She has a wonderful podcast, as Moyra said. And the important thing that I think people need to take away is there's hope. But there's also the ability to take even better control of your well-being, more than you may realize. And it's with these small, manageable steps that will lead you to your healthiest, healthy life possible.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, that's a great way to end it. Thank you so much, Samantha, for being here. I hope to see you in a couple of weeks. Are you going to Dallas?
I'm going to be there virtually, but I will not be in person. I'll be in Europe, so I can't be there first.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll see you another time in person, and I know that for sure. But thank you for this. Again, I'm so grateful that we've been able to come together and meet in this lifetime, and that we can both be on this journey of helping others know that they can live their best life. They can live their healthiest life. And I will put all your links in the show notes so they can find you. And again, thank you again for this. Continue to do what you're doing, because it is just lovely and wonderful. And I just really appreciate all the knowledge I learned today, as well as I know my audience will learn too. So thank you for being here with me.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Moyra.
Hey there, ready to live a more joyful life? Considering connecting with someone who can help you? If so, I'd like to be that person. I offer a free consultation where we determine where the chaos is in your life and how you can learn to bring more joy each and every day. Visit my website, MoyraGorski.com, or simply email me, Moyra@MoyraGorski.com, with more joy in the subject line. I look forward to connecting, and I'm here to say there will always be some chaos, which requires a little juggling, but you can find joy and live your life intentionally filled with that joy. Let me help you on your journey to joy, and that's joy, the journey of you.